Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Midday Brief here on Joy News on Multi TV. My name is Nia Krofi Smatabi. Coming up in this hour, we'll get you an update on the Supreme Court's hearing of the election petition. And if you've been following, you're probably aware that Dr. Afarijan has entered the dock today. We'll get more from our correspondents at the court. And then also we'll be talking about social protection vis-a-vis the special schools who had to close down for the students to go home because of lack of funds for them. And also we'll be looking at government social intervention programs. We have these plus some other stories coming up. Please stay tuned. Now, first up, a task force constituted to fight piracy of textiles has suspended its activities, waiting for a government plan to reconstitute it by June 12. The Textile Workers Union is, however, worried the delay in activities of the task force has buoyed business for importers of pirated prints. Abigail Adumakwinchi has more.
The local textile industry has been battling with pirated Ghanaian prints imported onto the market. The Anti-Pirated Textiles Task Force, drawn from stakeholders in the sector, was inaugurated in 2010 to seize and destroy all pirated prints on the market as a means of curbing the practice. The Joint Task Force has since been in operations until August last year, a situation the Textile Workers Union is unhappy about.
We have had some meetings with the new Minister of Trade. He has given us assurance that they are going to reactivate the task force and the vetting committees. On the 12th June has been fixed for the inauguration of the task force, but I personally have a very big problem with these delays. The union is worried. We are worried because our members, some are losing their jobs, some who are working are not being paid adequately just because of these challenges that can't be solved by government.
The task force has already seized about 2,400 pirated prints, but is yet to destroy them as the activities have been suspended. The mode of destruction of the seized prints remains a contention, but the union maintains it must be in line with the laws of the World Trade Organization.
Politicians feel that why do we destroy them? Why don't we, give them to orphanage and all these things? Orphanage for what? You see, the problem, perhaps they don't understand the issues well. WTO agreement does not permit giving this thing to charity. No, it is not allowed. If they want us to debate it, you create a forum for those politicians who are advocating for, the distribution of this thing to the charity. They should come and then prove it. Somebody's design. Then they should rather give this back to the owners of the designs, but not to give it to charity. For what?
He believes the textile industry could generate employment for the youth if the inherent illegalities are corrected.
And if government is committed to creating jobs for the youth, I think this is an area that the state cannot afford to, ignore. I think that we should be really serious and committed to ensuring that on the 12th doesn't pass with nothing happening.
Away from textiles, the Minister for Youth and Sports, Elvis Afriyankwa, has assured beneficiaries of the Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Agency, GIDA, that government will do everything within its power to pay them their allowances. He said this would be done even before the Ministerial Impact Assessment and Review Committee finalizes its report on the ongoing investigations. He made this known at a press briefing in Accra.
The committee was inaugurated by the Minister of Youth and Sports on the 12th of April to help review the operations of GIDA and make recommendations on improving the long-term viability and sustainability of the program. The minister was therefore unhappy that the committee was prejudged by some even before it concludes its work.
People have already started prejudicing and undermining the report. We do not know what the report will be. We do not know what the recommendations will be. And I just want to use your medium to appeal that it's only fair that if a committee has been given work, these are people who are high-level professionals who've taken time off their work and put their integrity on the line and are doing some good work for the nation. So it is only fair that we give them that opportunity. The committee will bring its report. When the report comes out, then we can have a more meaningful discussion.
All payments to service providers of the program have been frozen as investigations go on, and as such, beneficiaries have not been paid since January. The minister said over 400,000 beneficiaries have been affected.
I want to use your medium to assure the beneficiaries that it is because of concern for their plight that we are putting all these measures in place. And so beneficiaries are going to be paid what is owed them, and those that are supposed to be exited, if they've done the 2 years, they will be exited, and then based on the recommendations of the committee, the restructuring will be done, and then we'll look at the way forward.
The committee is expected to present its report within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, now joining me, I've been joined in the studio actually by Charles Othniel Abe. He is with the African Development Program, and you remember him. He's been on the Midday Brief with us before to talk about social intervention and social protection issues, and he's joining me again this afternoon to talk about the issues of social protection that have to do, of course, with JIDA and, of course, also with the special school students. Good afternoon to you, Charles. And
good
thanks
afternoon,
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you again. So let's start off looking at the issue of JIDA, for instance. We were talking earlier and you spoke about the social intervention or protection bit of it. If you could enlighten our viewers about it, because it looks like everybody's focus now on JIDA is it has to do simply with the issues of corruption that have come up. But let's us into the social element of the JIDA program itself.
All right, thank you very much. It is important to just recall from the soundbite you played that there are about 400,000 beneficiaries on the program. Imagine all these 400,000 beneficiaries not under any form of support, in this instance, employment support, and they are unleashed onto society as unemployed persons. You know, the devil finds work for the idle hands. I'm not sure we can manage the social consequences of it. I mean, increase in vices, all that you can name. And so, in essence, such a social intervention program, it is appropriate to the extent that you help arrest some of these economic challenges you have. However, given the recent issues about the lack of transparency and accountability and corruption within the management and operations of JIDA, the conclusions and verdict of persons have been that, okay, why do we continue to have JIDA? And let's scrap it off. Even some will say opportunity cost. Indeed, there's opportunity cost in wanting to do A over B. And the whole summary has been like throwing the baby away with the dirty water. That is not the issue. There are social consequences as far as this whole program is concerned, and we have highlighted what the situation would be, all things being equal, if these persons...
So what do you say, or what would you say are the social consequences should we scrap a program like JIDA?
Indeed, already you have a global economic situation that is not so favorable. You heard the recent Ghana Statistical Service, their producer price and inflation issues they brought up. I mean, on the ground, it shows that the cost of living is rising. And to the extent that you have persons who, by one reason or the other, are unemployed and they do not have any form of sustenance, then how can they meet the daily needs of life? Remember that these issues go beyond just seeing it as seeing it as handouts or an extent, or to better put it, we are doing them a favor. No, it is not about it. Social protection is a human rights issue. They have the right to life, they have the right to holistic development. Some of them, as you can see, even with the special schools issue, this has to do with the right to education. And so the issue of social protection covers every sector of society. And if there are issues with one program or a number of programs, issues of corruption and stuff, it doesn't mean that, that whole setup should be scrapped. Rather, what it means is that we have to take a bigger look at the whole issue and put it within a proper perspective. If you recall, in our discussions behind this, as I did indicate to you that we have a number of financial regulations. We have the Financial Administration Act, we have the Financial Administration Regulations. And these are novelty regulations that was to help sanitize public financial funds management. And
but
so,
you believe they are not being implemented?
If those ones are done and done right, I mean, for me, I would ask, why would, for instance, is it the Zoom Lion one you talked about last week, and then the RLG? If I'm wrong, I stand for correction. Payments had been made upfront to the service providers, the contracted, those who have been contracted. One to train about 20,000 beneficiaries, and less than 5,000 have been paid. Yet payments have been made. So you ask yourself, what checks were done to ensure that the numbers that were actually said to have been trained were paid? I mean, I'm sure that our brother Manasseh, after that good job, could get us this information. So why is it that persons who are paid with the taxpayers' money to ensure that this is done at their ministry level or department level do not do that, and then the money is paid and then we start doing a post-facto analysis of what has happened? I mean, it doesn't sit well, and it gives a weapon to people who like, okay, these social benefits and social issues, let's focus on achieving economic growth and development, and the rest will take care of themselves. But it can't be so. Economic development goes hand in hand with social development, and together you can have a complete growth and development of a country.
You have alluded to the fact that even some are suggesting a total scrap of the program, but then you insist that because of the social element involved, we maintain it. Okay, granted, the ministry is investigating the whole issue, but let's go a bit away from that. And since you're coming from the social perspective, what do we then need to do to ensure that should subsequent programs like these come up, or even with the one we have now, we are able to sustain them so that the social element, like you're saying, so that we avoid the vices that may come up should we decide to scrap them or boycott them because of corruption and other issues that often shroud the activities of these social intervention programs?
Okay, come to think of it, let me take it from two angles. First of all, take a look at the school feeding program. I mean, who requires a government to roll out a school feeding program? Aren't there opportunity costs to that as well? But you see, the research and evidence available has shown that from the start of the implementation of that program till date, it has accelerated enrollment and increased retention in schools. And today, if Ghana can tout that, well, we have made substantial progress in achieving the MDG 1 and 2, 1 on poverty, 2 on education, it is because the enrollment and retention rates have been improved. And there's solid evidence to back that. I mean, in a research, in the Ghana School Feeding Program document, you find that they took a sample, a control element, those who have benefited from the program, pupils in schools who have benefited, and those who have not benefited. And comparatively, amongst other factors, you could attribute the rise in enrollment and retention to this program. And then we see the dividends coming. Some will be short-term, some will be long-term. So it is up to us, partnering with the media, to push forward more the evidence that shows that indeed social development goes hand in hand with economic development. As to what we need to do to help unravel these issues of transparency and accountability and what have you. Last week when we met, I did indicate that the National Social Protection Strategy document is more like a sleeping lion. Because that is a document, if you have, I will make a copy available so that you can also study it. And you see that globally, the development discourse has placed social protection in the scheme of things that it is a human rights issue. We have to agree on a minimum package of benefits that our citizens are entitled to, so they can cope with economic downturn, natural disasters like it happened at Kantamata and what have you, because people slip in and out of poverty. For some, it's a chronic or cyclical issue. Yeah. So when the National Social Protection Strategy document is actually to guide and steer national development dialogue and discourse, so we as a country can look at our resource constraints, one, can look at what our policy vision is as a country, and again look at the poverty and vulnerability assessments, and then we're able to agree that A, B, C, D will constitute the social intervention programs and policies that can help us achieve this goal within this limit of resources, so that you don't have a situation where there will be arguments against spending on social programs. Because look, the evidence we have from World Bank reports and even internally shows that in times of austerity, the social services suffer because policymakers want to see quick turnaround results, and so they will cut spending on education, cut spending on health. And you have heard the mental health people, the hospitals, they would want to close down. It can be so.
All right, but you spoke about school feeding program, yes, which brings me to the issue of the special schools.
Yes.
You earlier on this same platform called on government to do something, and we also asked you as civil society to do your bit as well. And we have also been following up on this particular story, and what we can tell you now is that classes have resumed for the special schools who have backed down on their threat to remain on holidays until a release of their grants. Authorities at the Accra Special School for the Deaf, for instance, they are saying that they have only suspended the action for 2 weeks and will proceed on holiday again if the subventions are not released. The Ministry of Education has meanwhile assured the grants will be released by close of this week.
This is the road leading to the school set up for persons with hearing and speech difficulties, the State School for the Deaf in Ajaikojo in the Tema West constituency. As deplorable as it is, pupils have to trek since the school's buses that are roadworthy are not in use due to the lack of funds to fuel them. Officials of the school are worried pupils have to go through several difficulties due to persistent delays in the release of government subventions.
As when they close and it's raining, you see, it becomes very terrible to see those young children, you see, and then especially when they cannot even talk. It's worrying actually, but I feel strongly that they should know that their children don't pay school fees. And for that reason, anytime we are going to reopen, they should try as much as possible to make some provision for us.
The school's headmaster earlier told Joy News in a telephone interview the decision to suspend the action was arrived at a meeting held last week, Thursday, May 23, between heads of the special schools and stakeholders in the sector. They, however, say they will have no choice but to close the schools again if the monies do not come through.
In Nigeria, we are expecting 25,327.5 Ghana cedis in terms of feeding grant for this particular term. It is likely that they will be making some part payments, and then later on, when the whole money is available, then they will top it up. That we have presented a petition to the government, and there have been assurances that they will release the money. We decide not to stay out, but to come. And at least let's come and do some 2 weeks and see what will happen.
The school in the meantime says it has managed to procure some cooking gas and food ingredients to last for the 2-week period. But the Ministry of Education says there should be no need for the schools to revisit their earlier threat.
The money has been released. The finance minister has written to the Minister of Education raising the funds. So it has been actually worked out at the Controller and Accountant General Department. So hopefully before the end of the week, they will receive it. No, because of the process that it goes through. You know, we have a bureaucratic system. So it has to go through so many processes before the money actually reflects in the accounts of the institutions.
He explains the delay in the release of the subventions.
The revenue that the government generates is what is used in payment of such grants. You get a point. So it all depends on the generation of revenue. The ministry is not self-accounting. All monies that the ministry actually uses comes from the finance ministry. And it's a budget, it's from the budget of the ministry. And then, it has to go through so many channels. And that was exactly what actually delayed.
Hopefully, all the schools will be able to convince their creditors to sustain them with supplies until these monies become available, as promised, by the end of the week. Abigail Aduma-Quenchi for Joy News.
So that was Abigail Aduma-Quenchi who followed up on the story. And so, Charles, we understand at least by the close of this week, the money should be with the authorities of the various schools. Do you foresee a situation whereby we understand from Abigail, what I understand is that this is just half payment they've been given. It's money for feeding, not for the grants and the one that takes care of the daily administration of the school. Do you expect how soon should we expect that we'll get money for the running of the everyday activities of the school?
It is a question I hope I could be able to answer. But you see, but
he said also the headmaster. Sorry to cut you, but the headmaster seems to be suggesting that what they are going to receive so far is just about for feeding for about 2 weeks.
Exactly, and you see, earlier on in our discussion, I did indicate that when governments are faced with austerity issues, normally the social sector suffer. And a clear example is the Ministry of Education.
But we are told our education consumes the biggest chunk of our GDP.
But you want to investigate what and what makes up that composition. You can't aggregate everything together. Check the issue of salaries and emoluments. I mean, the goods and services go to stationery, teaching and learning materials, maintenance, and things of that nature. And so these are critical funds that are needed. And you see, if the schools can at least heave a sigh of relief that, there's positive signals beckoning, what happens to the items they have credited? Okay, what happens to that? Because remember that I'm not sure if you're a business person and you lend out to them, it will be gratis. It will be at a cost. Right. Who takes care of that cost?
Thank you very much, Charles. I wish we could continue this discussion in very long, but we'll have to rush over quickly to the Supreme Court to get some reaction from my colleague Anu Sabute, who's speaking with a member of the petitioners' legal team, Yabo Abenga Samwa.
Structured proceeding. First of all parties have to know what the other party is going to say or rely on in advance, including the court. That's why the court said, file your affidavits with attached evidence, and then we come and start. That is why sometimes a document is being presented and you can object and say it's not being filed, and the court will not accept it, because the parties are not supposed to be surprised by new evidence halfway through the process. The parties are supposed to know what they are coming to talk about and what they are coming to defend. You understand? So that they can prepare themselves. So there is a reason why affidavits are sworn to and put on there. Now, there's also a sense of responsibility when you swear an affidavit, that you have personal knowledge, to the best of your knowledge, of the things you have sworn to, and that you can best speak to them at that material time. So you have a situation now where Dr. Farijan, who has never sworn to any of the affidavits on behalf of the EC, is in the box, giving oral testimony, supposed to be confined to the affidavits, but not quite, because he didn't swear them, and he has any information he thinks he must give. And the court feels constrained because of his special status as a returning officer. They also don't want to stop him because they don't know what he will say, which may be relevant to the case. So it's a very interesting and dicey case. You realize that we have restrained ourselves from objecting, but to a large extent, several of the areas where he covered may not necessarily be germane to the issues.
Does it in a way make your cross-examination difficult if it comes to your turn?
No. I think this one is just a matter of time. And time, we've spent this much time, and I think we can afford the time. It's a matter of how long he will take to give his cross-examination. And of course, if you are going to do cross-examination, you have to be alert on the points where you're going to engage and cross-examine on. So that shouldn't be a problem for cross-examination. It's just the sheer volume of material that he is putting out and how long it will take him to put out. We are not going to lose much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, sir.
So you heard Yabo Abenga Samwa, who is one of the spokespersons for the
Okay, thank you very much, Anil Sabute from the Supreme Court. He was speaking there to Yao Boabeng Asamoah, a member of the petitioners' legal team. But earlier in the studio, I was speaking with Charles Othniel Abe. He's with the Africa Development Program. We're talking about social intervention programs. But we take a break here. We'll be right back with some more stories. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and let's do some news from the Presidency now, which is about the daily press briefing at the Presidency. Deputy Information Minister Murtala Mohammed had indicated that President Mahama, who is attending the TICAD conference in Japan, yesterday discussed how to renegotiate some grants that were denied Ghana under the JICA project during the HIPIC era.
Some of our rural development, if you look at JICA is something that has helped several rural communities in Ghana. And the other time I stated here that when we went HIPIC, indeed we lost that opportunity of getting the grant, the yen grant from the Japanese people or Japanese government. His Excellency the President thinks that it's an opportunity to see how best he can renegotiate that agreement, because it helps, and it helps in many other areas.
He also spoke about controversy going on about whether or not tariff prices should be increased.
We haven't had any report submitted to government by the PURC. Until the PURC submits a report to government, I don't think that government would want to make any statement on this. They are mandated, as you indicated, by law to do that. So government is waiting as and when they submit a report to government, whether there is a need for upward or downward, if you like, adjustment of tariffs of utilities. Government would look at it. But one thing I can say is that government is always mindful of the burden of such adjustment on the Ghanaian people. Government is mindful of the burden of such adjustment on industries and businesses. So, and government is also conscious of the effectiveness of those utility services.
Now, works at the neurosurgical unit of the Tamale Teaching Hospital has stalled following the theft of some vital surgical equipment at the unit. As a result, the unit has not been able to carry out any surgical operation for more than a week, leading to fears that patients with critical conditions might lose their lives. The center, which is fully booked for neurosurgical operations for the next 3 months, caters for patients in the entire northern sector and other parts of the country, as well as some referral cases from Burkina Faso. Now, in a telephone interview with Joy News, the Chief Executive Officer of the Tamale Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ken Sego, confirmed the report but assured that the police is investigating the issue. Policy analyst and executive director of the Center for Policy Analysis is appealing to government to save the agricultural sector from total collapse. Speaking at the launch of the book Agriculture and Social Development in Ghana on Wednesday, Dr. Joe Abbey described the sector as being in a sorry state, adding that the only way to revive it is for government to adopt feasible policies.
Agriculture, a key sector, is set to employ more than half of the working population on a formal and informal basis and accounts for almost half of GDP and export earnings. Despite its contributions, however, the challenges of the Ghanaian farmer are yet to be fully addressed. The 150-page book dissects the challenges and professes what it says are feasible policies to help tackle them.
The most important issue as a way of helping the farmer to help self is marketing. We keep reading about the fact that in the post-harvest period, the farmer quite often can be stuck with large quantities of produce, and the result is that gluts are created, prices fall, and the farmer may actually be more impoverished because of the hard work. So I think that it becomes important, whatever means we can have. I'm sure that if the cocoa farmer was not guaranteed purchase by the authorities, cocoa may not have developed the way that it has done. So let's solve the marketing problems of the farmers immediately.
One of the 7 authors of the book was unhappy no government official attended the launch, even though they were duly invited.
Their absence here actually is very soul-absorbing and heart-touching, because for me, without them, the process is incomplete. We cannot find these beautiful findings and then let them lie on the shelves. So if they had been here for us, for maybe they would have helped to even further clarify some of the key findings, and yet make some commitments in terms of resources and even in terms of time and then availability, so that together we can all build. Remember, research is a cycle where you have the problem, then you have to look at how you intervene, and then finally you have to see how you can actually provide the needed budgetary support for that. We may not have the resources to implement these things, but as we find and discover these problems, they serve as sources of motivating us to even, insist that the implementers should always be available.
He says for the country to salvage the economy, it must take the growth of the agricultural sector seriously.
Now, on to some other stories. The National Democratic Congress's Member of Parliament for Ahafo North, Kwesi Edusei, has warned plans by government to tackle illegal mining activities will not succeed unless greater quota of employment in mining companies are allocated to the local people in the mining areas. Kwesi Edusei told Joy News he is personally leading a crusade to get local authorities to stand up against mining firms that refuse to grant employment opportunities to indigenous people. Government has set up an inter-ministerial task force to address the issue of illegal mining, but the MP believes not much will be achieved. The Ahafo North MP said the people in the mining areas are not treated fairly, especially when it comes to employment. He said when skilled indigents apply to the mining companies in their communities, they are usually blatantly denied employment. He suggested that because the people who are denied employment have skills to mine, their only resort is to go into Galamsey. Now, some 2.4 billion people, that's 1/3 of the world's population, will remain without access to improved sanitation in 2015. That's according to a joint WHO and United Nations International Children's Fund, or UNICEF, report. The report, titled Progress on Sanitation and Drinking Water 2013 Update, was released in Accra by the WHO's Communication Officer in Geneva, Nada Oseran. It said at the current rate of progress, the 2013 Millennium Development Goal, or MDG, target of halving the proportion of the 1990 population without sanitation will be missed by 8%, or 500 million people. The report again stated that while UNICEF and the WHO announced last year that the goal of drinking water had been met and surpassed by 2010, the challenge to improve sanitation and reach those in need had led to a consolidated call for action to accelerate progress. It echoed the urgent call to action by United Nations Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliasson for the world community, to combine efforts and end open defecation by 2025. With less than 3 years to reach the MDG deadline, the WHO and UNICEF report has called for a final push to meet the sanitation target. The report noted that almost 2/3, or 64% of the world's population, had access to improved sanitation facilities, an increase of almost 1.9 billion since 1990. Now to the central region, where the regional minister Samuel Sapon has expressed shock at the high rate of chieftaincy disputes in that region. This, according to him, has resulted in the underdevelopment of the area. He added that the intensity of the dispute resulted in the no-catch show at this year's Abuachre Festival, which was celebrated by the chiefs and people of the Ifutu traditional area.
The regional minister Samuel Sapon, who was speaking to chiefs in the Commander Edna Eguafo Abrem municipality as part of his tour of the region, hoped chiefs in the region would settle their differences to ensure development of the area. He maintained government needs a united chieftaincy institution to help its development agenda, urging the chiefs to maintain a united front for the development of the country. At a meeting with the heads of departments in the KEEA municipality, the minister underscored underscored the need for the decentralized institutions in the various districts to work effectively as expected of them by government. He bemoaned the situation where district assemblies depend on the central government for developmental projects in their area instead of tapping resources available for development.
When we talk of the district assembly, I was important chrono assembly no was on what to me a positive impact on the assembly. So more get be positively and free hand with there. Let just have so be any society. I was at this assembly to be providing social amenities in terms of infrastructure. BBR
Samuel Sapon cautioned that non-performing district chief executives in the region would be dealt with accordingly, admonishing them to adhere to rules and regulations in order to improve the living standards of the people. Some concerns raised by participants at the meeting: the negative impact of sand winning on the municipality, bad roads and lack of housing for workers in the area. Georgina Pierce reports from the Central Region.
We'll take a break here on the Midday Brief. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. Well, coming up, we'll make sure that we get you in tip-top shape and wellness. Well, what I'm about to tell you, you may think it is funny, but it's very important. You need to look at your urine. Your urine says a lot about your health and your diet, which can help you with your daily nutrition intake. The color of your pee actually reveals whether you are hydrated enough, what type of food you're eating, if you have an infection, and if you're on medications or vitamins.
Most of us do not pay much attention to our urine. We consider it a waste product, so few of us bother to even glance at it for any changes it may have. However, urine can offer a wealth of information on what is going on inside your body. Urine is made by the kidney as they filter the blood of any unwanted and excess products. It gets its natural pale yellow to amber color from the pigment called urochrome. In good health, urine should have little or no smell. Most urine changes are often harmless and short-term, but some may be a sign of underlying health problems. Deeply amber-colored urine is concentrated urine. This is often a sign that you're not drinking enough fluid. Tea-colored or dark brown urine can be a sign of kidney or liver disease. It can also occur if you have a urinary tract infection or have been on certain medications like antibiotics, antimalarials, or some muscle relaxant. People who take lots of aloe vera may notice the same changes. Orange urine can be a sign of liver problems. It is, however, common in people who are on medication for tuberculosis, blood thinners, and chemotherapy. Occasionally, it is caused by foods containing high vitamin C or carnate, a plant pigment in orange-colored foods like carrots. Red or pink urine can indicate the presence of blood. Blood in urine occurs when one has a urinary tract infection, cancers, and growths in the urinary system or kidney problems such as stones. In some people, very strenuous exercise can have similar effects. Medications such as laxatives can also cause the same effect. People who have been exposed to toxic substance such as lead or mercury may have similar urine changes. The unusual color of blue or green urine can occur in babies with a rare condition in which they have abnormal high level of calcium. Food dyes and those used in certain medical tests, as well as certain medications, can cause this as well. Foul or fishy smell can be as a result of infection. Diabetics sometimes report of sweet aromatic smell in their urine. The increase in urination frequency or volume occurs in natural conditions such as pregnancy and when one drinks too much fluids. It can, however, occur in diabetes, urinary tract infection, overactive bladder, prostate problems, stroke, or Parkinson's disease.
Check your urine today. Is it telling you that you're dehydrated or hydrated? Well, if you haven't checked, just hold on a sec. After the midday brief, you can go take a pee and then you look at the color, and then I hope you jotted down something so you can tell whether what your urine is actually telling you. But let's go across the continents now. And Boko Haram has claimed that a massive military offensive launched against it by the Nigerian military is failing. And in Chile, a man who spat on a presidential candidate, Michelle Bachelet, will face jail time of up to 301 days if the case goes to trial. And now coming up in sports, Ghana's man on the touchline has urged his players to give the qualifiers their best shot in order to make a strong statement in their bid to qualify for Brazil 2014. Black Stars midfielder Sule Muntari has pleaded with temporary retired international players Michael Essien, Kevin Prince Boateng and the Ayew brothers to return to the Black Stars. The AC Milan star believes the Black Stars will be invincible when all four players rejoin the team. Chelsea's Michael Essien asked not to be reconsidered for the Nations Cup, while AC Milan's Kevin Prince Boateng quit the Black Stars in 2011. Andre Ayew and his younger brother Jordan. In chapters, let's flip over to showbiz. And well, after a successful attempt at retelling the life story of America's 16th President Abraham Lincoln, there's another story about former First Lady Hillary Clinton in the works. We'll tell you, they're trying to find out which of Hollywood's best A-listers gets that nod. And also, ever heard of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or New Jersey or probably Atlanta? Well, there's going to be an African version. It will be called Real Housewives of Lagos. So you know where that's going to be, right? So may the best actress win the nod. Okay, now let's get to do some international business. The biggest pork firms in China and the US plan to join forces in a $4.7 billion deal that aims to feed the world's most populous country. China's Shuanghu International has agreed to pay cash for the Virginia-based Smithfield Foods, which includes debt value the firm at $7.1 billion. The deal will be the largest takeover of a U.S. company by a Chinese rival. It also highlights the growing power of Chinese firms and their desire to secure global resources. However, rival bidders may emerge since Smithfield has another 30 days to hold talks with other interested parties. And that's it for the bulletin. But before we go, we brought you an update from the Supreme Court where the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Afari Jan, is taking the stand. And also we spoke to Charles Othniel Abe of Africa Development Program about social intervention programs and social protection. And he says that social protection should not be neglected at the expense of economic growth. And that's it for the midday brief. My name is Nia Kofi Smatabi. Many thanks for your company with us here. We'll join the Supreme Court again when they return from their break. Do have a good afternoon.